Hi everyone, this is Josie from OPWDD. I just wanted to go over a couple housekeeping things before we start. Today's meeting has closed captioning. In order to access closed captioning, you're going to click on the bottom right-hand corner to the multimedia viewer. And when you open that box, you may see a blue button saying go to external site. You want to click that. Then you should see the text starting to scroll. We are also offering sign language interpreting for anyone who may want to use that. For that, you are going to find the box called Heather Interpreter, and that's where your sign language interpreting will be. Heather, if you just want to turn your camera on, thank you. And I'm good. I'm going to turn it over to the board now.
Great, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. It's really exciting to see people in person, and a lot of people I got to meet for the first time in person today. I've seen some of you on Zoom, so thanks for being here for those who are able to make it, and many thanks to those who are also on by video. We don't always do introductions, but it's been a while since we've been together in person, so we will do those in a minute. And then we'll move on to the agenda, which is a very busy agenda today. We are honored to have Kim Hill here with us, the first Chief Disability Officer for New York State. And then we will move on to one of the issues that was raised at a prior meeting related to services in non-certified residential settings. And excitingly, the next thing on the agenda is announcing the winning flag design for neurodiversity. So we had seen all of those at the last meeting, and we had a lot of participation in terms of both submissions of ideas and designs, as well as voting for the winning design. So I feel like we need a drum roll for that one. And then we always open it up for discussion to talk about issues that we think we need to focus on for the future, other things that we should focus on in order to make more progress. So with that, we'll start with introductions in the room. And why don't we start with Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Hill, and I'm Governor Hochul's Chief Disability Officer.
I'll just talk loud. Good morning, I'm Simone Myers-Ruff from the State Education Department.
Good morning, Alexis Harrington from New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities.
Good morning, Alexia Holden with OPWDD.
Kristen Thatcher, self-advocate.
Some Courtney Burke.
Josh Mirsky.
Charles Basseville, parent and advocate.
Good morning, Chris Tasato, the New York State Council of Children and Families.
Hey, everybody. Sarah Kuriakos, Office of Mental Health.
Mike Tripodi, self-advocate and from the American Red Cross.
And I'm Greg Roberts from New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities.
Great. So if we could just go to the folks who are on by video, and you know them better. So Josie, if you don't mind just calling on them, that'd be great.
Dr. Pettinger.
Good morning, Jill Pettinger, Deputy Commissioner for Statewide Services at OPWDD.
Michael Gilberg.
I'm Michael Gilberg, appointed member of the board and self-advocate and special ed attorney.
Mila Harrison.
Hi, good morning. Dr. Harrison with the Department of Health and Medical Director role.
We have an Angela.
Angela O, a sign language interpreter.
That looks like all of our virtual.
Great. Okay, well, it's my honor to introduce Kim Hill. Most of you know her already, but in case you don't, Kim most recently served as the principal analyst for the New York State Assembly Standing Committee on People with Disabilities, which focuses primarily on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Previously, she served as director of the Assembly Task Force on People with Disabilities, which focused on issues pertaining primarily to people with physical and sensory disabilities. She will provide us an introduction to her role and tell us more about her office. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Courtney. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I brought along my entire staff because I figured I'd like to introduce you all to them and put some names to faces when we have the opportunity. So before I go into what our office does, I just want to acknowledge, first we have Kim Butchin, who's my executive assistant. and then Megan Parker, who's my deputy director, and Ben Tapa, who's the senior policy advisor for us. So we are currently a staff of 4. We were established under statute it was actually on Valentine's Day that Governor Hochul signed our office into law, which I just want to make as a side note how important it is that the office not only exists, but exists in statute. Something that makes it very hard to take away or remove. And it just reiterated her belief in the importance of focusing on disability issues, which is just so incredibly refreshing to have someone in her position to be able to focus on the issues that we're all talking about. So not only did she create the office in law, she housed us in the executive chamber, which means we're working side by side with all of the other portfolios within her office. And she, as I mentioned, she created it as an office with a staff. So I think that there's a solid understanding from the executive chamber that disability issues are important, something that we need to be working on regularly. And she has encouraged our office to be working collaboratively with all of the other portfolios within the executive chamber, and therefore all of the state agencies that represent the variety of people with disabilities. So under the statute, we were charged with a couple of things. First and foremost, well, actually, I can't say that. I'd say all of our responsibilities are of equal importance. But we currently act as some of her senior policy advisors on all disability issues. So we definitely advise on physical disability and sensory disability issues, but we work very closely with the Deputy Secretary Jahoon Kim for the mental hygiene portfolio, because obviously he has all of the agencies. So he's dealing with OPWDD, OMH, OASIS, OTWDD, Commission for the Blind, Office of Children and Family Services, and I know I'm missing a few. He has a hefty portfolio, but he covers most of the other disabilities that fall into state agencies. So in our work with Jahoon and his staff and all of the other portfolio deputy secretaries, senior policy advisors, assistant secretaries, we are working to collaborate on all types of disability issues. So where we cross over, it might be into housing, it might be into transportation, it might be something in health with like home care or any type of Medicaid issue. So essentially, one of our key things to be doing is making sure that all of the state agencies are talking to each other, because a lot of the people that we serve go into multiple agencies. And we have found a lot of times that multiple agencies don't necessarily always talk together, or they may not know that there is duplicative services going on. So in the short term that we've been here, we've talked with a lot of different agencies, and everybody has been so overwhelmingly welcoming to the partnership. So I really, really appreciate that. I mean, Salon Myers, who's sitting next to me, we talk all the time. Greg, you guys at OPWDD have been amazing partners. OMH, Department of Labor, incredible. I could go on. Housing. We have a lot of things in the works that wouldn't be possible if we were not talking and collaborating with the different agencies and portfolios within the chamber. Another thing that our office is responsible for is chairing the Most Integrated Setting Coordinating Council, which, as you know, almost all of the state agencies that we regularly talk about hold a seat on that council. We are charged with making sure that people with disabilities are served in the most integrated setting appropriate to their needs, and have to develop a new Olmstead plan. We are in the process of that exercise right now, and we're hoping that at some point in 2023 that we'll be issuing the new plan. Let's see, what else? Some of the other things that we have been charged with doing, one of the exercises that we're working on right now, we are the ADA coordinator for all of the state agencies. So we have canvassed all of the agencies in New York. We're trying to determine who both the statewide ADA ADA coordinators and also their reasonable accommodations coordinator. Once we have figured out who all those people are, we are going to be training the ADA coordinators with the assistance of John Harrion from Division of Human Rights. So hopefully in the very near future, we are going to have a list of all the ADA coordinators for all the state agencies. We will house that information on our webpage, and we'll be asking all of the agencies to share that information as well. Few of the things that we've been working on, like I said, we've only been here since February, so establishing our office, getting everybody hired and settled took up the first couple of months. But we've spent a great deal of time meeting with advocates, meeting with stakeholders, people with disabilities, different state agencies, definitely getting to know chamber staff and all of the people within the portfolios. We've done hundreds of meet and greets. We're continuing to do those daily. Our hope is that New York's entire disability community sees our office as an open door. I think it's been a long time since people have felt that they have somewhere that they can access and then help them to find the right place to go in state government, particularly those that may not have had representation prior to this office being created. So that has been our mission. Obviously, right now, as we're heading into another legislative session, we're working on state of the state exercises heading into the state budget. So that is taking up a great deal of our time. But in the midst of that, we're still doing a lot of the meetings for meet and greets. We're on to second and third rounds with some groups working on collaborative proposals that will hopefully go forward in the new year. So I think that I pretty much summed up everything that we're doing. If anyone has any questions for me or any of my staff, we are here. And I just want to echo the Greg had pointed out before we met. I want to assure everybody that our prime goal is the collaboration amongst state agencies and trying to break down the silos that have existed for far too long. So we welcome any interaction with everybody within this group, and we'll do whatever we can to work with you, to work with all of the other stakeholders and other agencies and portfolios that play a role in everything that we do.
That was a wonderful overview, and I do have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And you might have to be slightly cagey about your answer, but wondering what you anticipate or are hoping for in the new legislative session or the budget or any of the big initiatives that you're hoping make it there.
Yes, I don't want to promise anything because obviously everything nothing's been decided yet. But that said, we are taking a look at all of the recommendations that we're getting from all of our work that we're doing on the MISC and all of the priorities that people have brought to us. And we are working within all the state portfolios for state of the state and budget to hopefully to have people with disabilities truly acknowledged within both of these things is our goal. I hope that there's a good deal of substance. I don't want to go any further. I just don't want people to get their hopes up. But we have multiple proposals that we are putting forward that I hope see the light of day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, it's a lot of the time, it's that day-to-day work between the agencies where things can fall through the cracks, and just the importance of what you're doing to make sure that that doesn't happen or it happens less is really important work from my point of view. And people with autism are potentially served by multiple agencies. That's why this group is, to me, very valuable, because we have all the agencies at the table.
Yeah, no, I think that this group is a perfect example of why we need the cross-agency collaboration, the constant communication. I think we can do a lot of good things together once people are talking and acknowledging that people don't always necessarily fit into a neat little box, that services might need to be coming from a variety of providers that fall under different agencies. And it really needs to be about what each person needs to live as successfully and independently as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And we were created before your office was created. So You're not written into our statute, but I'm wondering if that's something that we should be advocating for, to have you formally as a member of this group.
Oh, that would be great.
A member of the public has asked, how do they contact your office?
They can, oh God, what is the accessibility? So if you email us at accessibility@exec, so it's short for exec.ny.gov. Okay, thank you.
And certainly in the interim, if you're not formally part of this group, you are welcome to all of our meetings in the future. We would love it if you're
Sure,
able
I'd
to
love it.
attend.
Hey, no, please, go ahead.
It is, and it is. And so we were really trying to figure that out, how we could get everybody
I'm
to.
sorry. I'm sorry. As the interpreter, I have no idea what the question was.
Oh,
Sit down now. Can you hear me now? I just wanted to know how her office was dealing with inquiries from the general public.
so that was a challenge because we were at the onset. It was myself for probably three months. Yeah, you started in April. So we needed to create a system where we weren't going to be, where the calls or emails or whatever were going to be unmanageable. So that's where we came up with creating this accessibility email that all four of us can access, and we all do access it, and it helps to break it up a little bit. We go in ebbs and flows where there's a lot and then it slows down a little bit and then there's a lot. But I think so far it's been working okay. We haven't, as far as I know, heard of any complaints of people having a hard time finding us or being able to access us, but.
Kim, first of all, thanks so much for being here today, and participating. You mentioned that you have a number of priorities for the department. Will you be putting together any type of list of priorities that we can track along with you to see how the department is doing towards meeting those priorities?
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, much of our work ends up falling under the most integrated setting coordinating council anyway, because really the focus of our office is the integration and inclusion of people with disabilities, and that's the intent of Olmsted. So once we have our Olmsted plan put out, we'll have it vetted and we'll put it out for public comment and all that. Once we have released that report, we are hopefully creating a way where we can measure all of the proposals that we put forward, both for short-term and long-term, to make it more trackable. And a lot of what we need to do is to be able to track all of the right data, to be able to tell us where we are and how we're doing. So I think that once that report is published, it's going to be very much trackable. But in the short term, the priorities that I think that we all share them, whether it be employment, home care, making sure that people have the access to home care, the housing that they need to be able to get home care, transportation, a big one, education. I think that across the board, we share the same priorities. So when you all are meeting and when you're meeting with the groups that you all work with day to day, as you have proposals to solve some of the issues that we're facing, we welcome those suggestions too. So we're always looking for maybe a new way to look at something, a different way to address something. So I think in the long term, things will be very trackable.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you again. This was really helpful, and we look forward
Thanks
to
for having us.
seeing you again at a future meeting.
Definitely.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, I'm going to move on to our other guest speaker, which is Alexis Harrington, is going to talk about non-certified residential options. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Oh. All right, can you hear me okay? I think this is working.
All right, so thank you everybody for having me here today. I'm very excited to speak on a lot of things that have been in motion related to non-certified housing options. So I did kind of want to cue this up in the context of the 507 plan. There has been so much incredible work that has gone into developing that plan. So I'm going to kind of highlight where that fits into the broader scope for non-certified housing, the things that have already been underway, and where we're going with non-certified housing. So related to the 507 plan, for those of you who have not had a chance to look at it yet, the non-certified housing piece is really a component of goal 2, which is transforming our system through innovation and change. Specifically broadening housing supports and residential services, which really includes that focus on non-certified housing options. So what we're really trying to focus on is providing a continuum of affordable, accessible housing support statewide. And what we're really doing right now is investigating ways that we can expand housing choice. So some agency initiatives for non-certified housing. We were able to release an ADM in March of 2022 that really outlined the expectations, the roles and responsibilities associated with the housing subsidy program. That was really the first time that there was an actual guidebook for the field and community to learn what that program was all about. We also were able to have the regional offices, the regional field offices, reorganized to streamline that review and approval process related with the housing subsidy program. I think one of the most exciting things was that we were able to increase the housing subsidy payment standards just recently, and that really aligns with the HUD fair market rent levels for 2022. And then we were also able to add a flat administrative fee, and that's really to support the providers in doing all of those outlined activities in our ADM. We've got a whole section that outlines all of the expectations of what we would think a provider should really be doing to support somebody who is accessing that housing subsidy. So then kind of switching gears, we've got a few different areas and programs that support the expansion of non-certified housing. I'm going to save the most exciting one for last, and I will start on the things that already exist today. So we've got our integrated supportive housing. We love acronyms, so we call that one ISH. So that is a program that we have had $15 million in capital funding for the state fiscal year 2022 to 2023. What our expectation is moving forward, and this is also outlined in our 507 strategic plan, is that we will actually have 2 application rounds for this moving forward. Historically, we've always only had 1. So moving forward, we will have an early summer capital funding and housing subsidy support. So something that we had new this year over the summer is instead of just having capital applications for ISH, who are really developing new units, we also allowed a non-capital component for projects that did not need our capital. We're seeking New York State Homes and Community Renewals, HCR capital, but really wanted our commitment to housing subsidies so that they knew once that property was kind of developed that they had our commitment to ongoing housing subsidies for everybody who met that qualification. And then our newest round is in the winter, and that will be housing subsidy only. There will be no capital component for that. So just some background on our ISH housing. Since 2012, we had over 850 units of affordable supportive housing supported through this ISH program. 96 units were supported statewide in our most recent summer 2022 application round. And right now we have over 650 units that are currently open and operating statewide. And then just a note that we are actually also working with HCR to kind of support the Suffolk County government. They've got a lot of funding available, which is very exciting, to just align our funding streams for affordable housing. So then switching gears to the other initiative that already exists, it's the Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative. Again, we love our acronyms. We call that one ESHI. So this is an interagency statewide program that really focuses on supportive housing for people who are homeless. There's a very specific definition for that related to OPWDD. We really focus on that emergency need level on our certified residential opportunities list. And we currently have 4 ESHI projects supported by OPWDD, and we expect another project to be coming online in the next 2 years. So then more of the exciting, flexible, innovative option that just kind of was issued for public comment last month, now that we're in December. So this is the funding opportunity for independent living letters of support. Again, on the acronym train, we call this FULFILLS. Was really happy that that one stuck, love it. So that has been issued for public comment, like I said, last month. So that will be a program that provides letters of support for a commitment to housing subsidies only. And that's really for projects that may not necessarily fit our ISH mold. Because that ISH is so specific to really be able to support HCR's requirements, we knew that there needed to be a more flexible option there. So for that, we are expecting to release that in the late spring of next year. So I just want to focus a bit on the fulfills process. So we issued a memo that just kind of outlines the focus of this particular process. What we have kind of outlined in that memo is a timeline for all of these various projects that we support through non-certified housing. So what we've kind of outlined in that memo is that for late spring of each year, that's when we anticipate the flexible fulfills option to go live and accept applications. Then in early summer of each year, that would be when the ISH application for both capital and non-capital would be launched. And then in the winter of each year, that's when that second round of ISH, no capital associated with that, just strictly the housing subsidy request. So just kind of walking through the outline of the fulfills that's out there. I think if folks are familiar with the housing subsidy ADM, you'll know that there is a section in the ADM that kind of associates to a process that has never existed before. And that's because we were working on this process and really wanted to make sure that we were getting this right. So we've referenced it kind of as a placeholder in the ADM, but this is the process that we had referenced. So this is really to be used to kind of request a group of housing subsidies to be funded by OPWDD for 4 or more individuals with IDD. So we did kind of capture this for any type of setting. So that is for an apartment style complex, a large single family home. It's really wherever you would anticipate to be using housing subsidies that we'd want to kind of review that process and make sure that it is in alignment with the policy and this proposed new process. What we have outlined in this document, it includes an introduction that, really it focuses on what was outlined in our 507 plan. We've got our intended outcomes that are related with this fulfills process. We have the term of conditional support for a project, which just outlines that it must be open within 12 months of the date of the support letter. We note who the eligible providers are. So what's really important is to just note that this letter can only go to an OPWDD approved provider in good standing. And that is because that provider is going to be the entity that is actually providing the housing subsidy. So we have to make sure that we've got a great provider on the hook to be able to do that. We also note the eligible target population. We've got the reporting and operating requirements. There's a section about shared staffing arrangements, which is nothing new. That really just highlights what is already included in our self-direction guidance manual. We've got project readiness, the requirement of technical assistance calls. Our general requirements also includes what our proposed scoring criteria is for this particular project. And then the application instructions and requirements themselves are all included in this public comment document. So I'm going to stop talking for a second and see if folks have any questions.
Yeah, so Alexis, first of all, thanks for being here. I think the future of adults with autism, this non-certified setting is so vitally important because I've experienced both. I have two boys, one in a certified setting, one in a non-certified setting. Night and day, non-certified settings offer so much more enrichment opportunities than certified settings. So I'm so happy to see this. I read through that document. However, it raises so many more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And it's some of it is very concerning.
Okay.
And we need more time than this to address that. And I hope we can have more time, maybe prior to you closing the comment section. I think it's December 29th.
Yes.
I don't know if we can have another session on it because there's so many questions that arise. And one of the biggest one is if you're not approved, if you do not get a letter of support and there's a non-certified setting already open, does that mean you're going to close it down? Right. So that's the biggest question that comes up. And that's a huge concern with non-certified settings that are doing amazing work already. The other criticism I have of the area, and I commend Carrie for putting this out because she recognizes the need for this. So getting this out is tremendous. It's something we haven't had in years and families have been fighting for it. Who goes out and visits these non-certified settings? To solely rely on an application without going out to see the young men and women and how they're thriving in these non-certified settings is such a shortcoming of this whole process. So to make a decision solely based on what an application says or doesn't say is so short-sighted. And I hope you'll recognize that because again, and I'm going to point out my son's program, but it's not just about my son's program. When you go out and see how he's thriving from a year ago and all the young men and women thriving in this program, and they will not meet all of the criteria that you are asking for in this document. And it would be a shame to shut down this program just because it doesn't check all the boxes. And I hope this is seriously addressed, not just, and this is not directed to you, but not just shaking your head yes, but this has to be seriously addressed or you are going to put so many young men and women that are in great programs back on the streets or back home with their parents. That cannot be. That absolutely cannot be. So I hope this is addressed seriously, and I hope we can have another session. If everyone has an opportunity, you should read through the draft. It's a thick draft. It's not a difficult one to get through, and you've surmised it perfectly, and thank you for that. And maybe you could share that summary with the group, the board. I think that would be helpful rather than having to read through the full, I think it's 15 or 20 pages.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I just highlighted certain things in this. I didn't like create a separate summary or anything. But I really just stuck to the topic areas that are in bold, if that's more helpful to review. But I hear your concern. So it really sounds like if there's anything that is existing that fits into this category, what are we going to do? And I would just encourage in your public comment, when you submit that to us, make sure that if you have ideas about what that should look like, that you are very clear in that submission to us, because I totally understand, like, this is really kind of focused on brand new projects and doesn't really speak to things that may exist and fit into this category. So thank you.
And I'm sorry not to put you on the spot, but it's too vitally important to pass it up. Do you have an answer at this point that if an existing program does not check all your boxes, that the intent is to not provide housing subsidies to that program?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
Kristen, do you have a question?
No, but I have a comment. So I belong to Arch Care is actually making houses for people with autism they're living independently, so that's something new going on too, so, and I belong to that housing. It's the one on Ten Island now, and I'm the only female in that place, but that's okay, I'm the queen bee, so it's fun. That's it.
Charlie, to answer your, I think it's more a proposal than a question. If this group could come together at some point before the 29th of December to put something more formal in writing.
Yeah, maybe we could put, as a group, put our public comments together to this draft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And a lot of what I'm hearing you saying is it's an age-old problem, I think, with government programs where they have to have some criteria in order to have the program and make people qualify or not qualify. And it's always been difficult for me because it's never designed around the person. It's sort of designed around the program. So the question is, how do you make it more flexible?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I agree. I think there's so many programs out there. There has to be more of a streamlined process so that they do meet some sense of regulation, whatever that may be, or to make sure that everyone there is being cared for the proper way, right? But to your point, to be rigid, and this makes it seem pretty rigid based on the questions you're asking to complete. The flexibility part, I think, is a really important component.
Thank you.
We took a question from a board member in the chat. When an applicant is accepted, must they renew every year?
Oh, they did hear you. Okay.
I'm not sure if Mary Lou wants to speak on that question.
Can you repeat that, please?
We saw you had a question in the chat. We want to give you the opportunity to ask it.
Yes. Okay. My question was when you were talking about applications to the housing, and it starts in the spring, accepted in the summer, and so forth. When a resident is in the housing, do they need to reapply every year, or is it given that they will be housed there for as long as they need?
So I think that might be a two-part question. It sounds like it might be a question towards the project itself, which I don't think we speak to any need of an annual renewal of the project meeting those standards. We do note that the project would have to be up and running within 12 months of the letter of support. So I think that answers that part. When you're kind of speaking more to the person who's actually living there and accessing the subsidy, there are housing subsidy kind of policy requirements in our ADM that does require an annual recertification. So that is kind of outlined more in depth in our policy.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other thoughts and comments? I'm glad you're having sounds like you're having a good experience with your setting.
Yes, there's a lot of, it's very flexible. It's that on, it's called St. Teresa's Arch Care, whatever it's called, I don't even know anymore. So, it's independent living, like there's 8 people who has autism and 2 people without. So it's like a more family dynamic, but we get to independently live by ourselves, but we can also be together if we want to. So it's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see these different models and also to see some of the funding there as well. Yeah, so very helpful. Thank you for the presentation. And so Greg, we'll try to maybe get a phone call on or something, conference call with this group in the next couple weeks.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be saying that to, whether it's Josie or, yeah, but we'll work on it. Thanks for the input. Great. Well, if we're ready to move on, if there's nothing else on this topic, which I think is something that we probably should continue to revisit at future meetings, then it's time for the drum roll and to go through. I think we're going to look at a few of the top. I think because it was close in the voting is what I heard. It was a tough choice, but so if we could take a look at that, that would be great.
Yep. So, hi everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Alexia Holden. I work at Office of People with Developmental Disabilities and Legislative and Governmental Affairs, but I also assist with the board, and I've been helping with the flag design submission process and selection process. Josie, if we're able to make it great, perfect. So I'll just start off with a little bit of background. If you want to switch the slide, please. So the board announced the neurodiversity flag design submission period at the July meeting. Since after that period was announced, over 40 designs were submitted from across the state. We had a really diverse group of people who submitted their designs. Special shout out to the art classes and day hub centers and different groups that use it as a project to talk about neurodiversity and really bring it to the forefront and have people brainstorm on it. So thank you to those that submitted the designs. In October, the board went over the designs and opened the selection process. We had over 1,500 votes cast during the open voting period, which is a great engagement from across the state. From the first day it was open to the last day it was open, so people really did engage with the voting, and we're really thankful for that. And so yeah, thank you to everyone who submitted a design, voted for a design, engaged with the initiative by sharing it with friends on social media. Thank you to the providers and advocacy groups that shared it on social media. That was helpful. And so I'm going to go over the top 3 designs and then announce the selected design and invite the artist to speak. Next slide, please. So the first design that made the top 3, and I must note, the top 3 were all within 10 to 20 votes of each other, so it was a very close race, and all 40 designs did receive votes, so very close across the board. Top 10 were all within 10, 20 votes of each other, so very tight race. This first one was from Josh Mursky. He's also a board member. I think he's here today. I'm not going to read the caption, but I'm just going to let it display for a little bit. So this was one of the top 3. Next slide, please. This next one was from SMM Advertising. Also let the caption stay on the slide for a little bit, so if people want to read it. We did go over it in the last meeting, so I won't be repetitive. I know everyone just wants to know who won. And then next slide, please. And this was the final top 3 design. This artist was Nim Dawson. Next slide, please. And so drum roll, the top selected design is... Whenever you're ready, Josie.
Thank you.
So I want to let Josh speak about his design. There was hundreds of votes cast for Josh's design. It was very close to the second in the tier, and I know Josh has a long history with creating this design, so I'd love to open the floor to whatever you would like to share.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, why make a flag, though, was a question that was brought up to me many times. Around two years ago, I first came up with the idea for a flag. Like, why should we have this? And that question first I was taken a little back, but I thought to myself, well, isn't this the societal problem that people don't put our needs first? The fact that matters is that society often, whether we like to admit it or not, does not view us with the respect and dignity that we deserve. This is best illustrated in the month of April. April is known as Autism Acceptance Month. It's a month everyone lights it up blue. However, society does not know how much of an insult this is to the population of autistic people. One only needs to ask and they will hear hundreds, maybe even thousands of folks express their desire not to light it up blue. For that does not accurately represent the people, but it does an organization, which I will not name because I do not want to get sued or anything. Let this flag, however, be an alternative for those who don't want to light it up blue. However, there's also a fact at hand that we as a people, for the most part, have always seen the opportunity for change to be to try to ask the government to change, ask for the change to be handed or delivered. This method has not produced acceptable results. It's time for the neurodivergent to do it themselves. It's time for us to pick ourselves up, for us to dust ourselves off, and for us to usher in a golden age of neurodivergent advocacy ourselves. We must get more involved in government. We need neurodiversity in the halls of Albany and in the form of neurodiverse members in the state Senate and Assembly. We need to put both hands on the wheel of progress and clench them tight and never let go. Through the iron will of the neurodivergent, we and we alone will change the course of our people's history. For we go forth with a mindset that says loudly and unapologetically, onwards, forwards, never backwards. Let this flag inspire hope and be the calling card for action. Thank you.
Josh, I just wanted to let you know that there is a ton of people in the chat congratulating you.
Oh, well, thank you, everyone.
Would you want to talk about the specific aspects of the design and what they mean?
Yeah, so pretty much when I was coming up with the design, the main thing was I did not want to put blue, because again, for so many years, I've seen in comment sections over and over on all forms of social media, people say, okay guys, watch out, it's gonna be April. If you get triggered by blue, you can put it down here and we can all talk about it. And I was disgusted that, all this is openly out there if you want to look, but no one ever does anything about it. The White House lights up blue, everywhere lights up blue. So I knew blue could not be in the flag because that would be an insult to so many people. And then I thought the infinity signal, because lots of people, if you look it up online, I've already kind of said, yeah, this symbol kind of represents us. So as a flag for the people, I was like, okay, let's put this in there. And then gold and red, for the most part, those are colors which, again, other people have said, yeah, light up gold or light up red. So put it there too. So that's the main reasons for it. And yeah, I mean, the rest is like in the description, but this was, again, over 2 years worth of work. Even before I mentioned it to the board, I was like, figuring, how do I get this out? How do I get this out? I spoke to state senators. I went to state senator's office, State Senator Jim Gorgon. I've mentioned this and showed it to Congressman Tom Suozzi. We talk all that. So like this, I've been spreading the word like crazy. I have friends in ABC executives in ABC, one of whom was watching our last meeting and I believe commented. Lots of support from there. So lots of people, when they hear about this, they're like, no, you're right. Like, we have a pride flag, and it is a beautiful flag, by the way. It is a beautiful flag. When I walk down Jones Beach in like summer, you see that thing flying in the wind. It's beautiful. But then I think, well, that represents a lot of people, but why do we not have one? I mean, I imagine there's lots of neurodivergent people in the state of New York. I'd like to think that. So why don't we have a flag? And why isn't it like blasted all over the place like the pride flag? If we have a pride flag, we should have a neurodivergent flag, and that flag should be put everywhere and recognized everywhere as that. So I feel very strongly about that. And I'm not going to stop pushing until this thing is flying on flagpoles everywhere. And I really think it will be, because I see the people really see that this is something they want, this is something they need. And yeah, so it will happen one way or another. It will happen. I don't know if anyone has any questions about this or in the comment sections or anything, but I'll love to answer them.
I'd love to see more in the press about it too.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if we could get press things, that would be critical, because the people need to know about this, because we need to think of this as like, make pretend we're like a business. If we're a business, and we have a product, in order to make profit, you need to advertise the product. Nobody will just come looking, okay, what's in your store? No, you gotta advertise. You gotta put things out on the windows. You gotta put ads out, all that stuff. So we need this could be like our product. This is what we are giving to the people, based on their input and like via comment sections and things. So we need to really push this. This can't be like just something we talk about on the board. This has to be something we push aggressively. And history will look back and say, this is where it started. This is where it started. I feel very strongly about that. And there are so many people like that. I'm from Long Island, on the record, in case everyone knows. So back on Long Island, so many people have asked me to really push this. Before I came up, they said, push the flag, the flag, the flag. So I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for a whole bunch of people who I know in person on Long Island. So yeah, I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, it's a tremendous way to raise awareness, which has always been one of the goals of this group.
Yeah, and so then people will know about the board, because before when I first joined the board and stuff, I was telling people, I'm like, oh, that's great, but what is that? And I go to senators and I'm like, yeah, what is state senators? I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great, but what is that? And members of Congress, the United States Congress. So and then I have to explain it. But we should get to a point where it doesn't need to be explained, but people just know this exists, because people need to know. Because if people don't know about us, like, we're not living up to our full potential. And this is a safe opportunity. And I don't view that's just like a corny tagline. I think, that's something. So we should really push this, because people need to know this exists. If they want to reach out to us, they see that flag, hey, I know I can reach out to someone. I think that's very important.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, awesome work. And I give you so much credit for being the person to even raise this issue to begin with. And then to have the winning design is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's, that film, My First Fall in Love, this is like 10 times better than that. So yeah, this is 10 times. That's all I got to say about that, but yeah.
I feel like I should have had a flag pin to pin on your.
Yeah. We should get those. We should get those. Yeah, let's do that. And I work at my day job at a print shop, which is the Spectrum Design Foundation, where over 75% of the individuals there are neurodiverse. So I think if we, through maybe NICED or something, we get a contract going, we should have it printed there, so then all the neurodivergent flags throughout the state will be done by neurodivergent people. So it will be a completely neurodivergent process from start to finish, and it'll be helping all around. So I think we should really talk about that and get that done if possible.
I think that's a great idea. I'm on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Josh, we do have a question in the chat. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you are comfortable sharing your email, but I can, if anyone wants to email the Autism Spectrum Disorders Board Advisory Board email, I can connect you with Josh. I'll put that email in the chat for people.
All right.
Is there a next step with the flag on your packet?
Well, I would like to think that we should get these things made. Because what's the good of a flag if it's just, on there, but we don't get it around? We need to get it made. I think that's very important. I think that also we should get the idea like pushed around. We need our social media, everything. People need to know this thing exists. Because like if no one knew about the pride flag, you won't be seeing the pride flag everywhere. When they said, hey, let's make a pride flag. But no, they got it going. They got that image pushed all in place, and now you see it everywhere because you need an aggressive, quote unquote, like marketing type campaign. And again, like of all the states, I think New York, we can do it the best. I mean, I don't think they'd be doing this in Texas, but right? But this is New York, and we can now prove once again why we are not Texas or why we are not Florida. We are New York, and these things we move fast, we move aggressively, and we don't stop until we get 100%. So I think that's what we should do. We should get the pins being made. We should get them all this by the next meeting, so we can show the people watching this like, hey, look, we actually did it. We're actually, the state's actually doing stuff. We're putting our money where their mouth is. Because it's all easy and nice, but then when people say, oh, we got to put money to it, you all of a sudden usually things just stop. Like, uh-oh, the train's not moving anymore. What are we going to do? So I really think that we should show the neurodivergent people who are often get overlooked historically, that we're actually, we're moving, and so then they can hold a flag and like, this is my flag. And what a powerful feeling that would be, you're agreeing down there. So yeah, so I think that should be our goal. Should be by the next board meeting. I think we should have pins. I think we should have physical flags. I'm very hopeful, knowing some of the people on here personally, that will happen.
Also, we also get stickers. I think we really need this with stickers. Like,
Stickers are great. We need stickers.
I'm liking that too. Stickers. I'm liking that. Yeah, why not? We should get this everything and everywhere, and I really think we could do it. I really do. I mean, for this state, we have a good administration who's friendly to the cause in the governor's office. I really think we could do this, and I don't see why not.
Josh, the Stella at Spectrum, do you guys do stickers or just, I know you do hats and shirts. Do you guys also do stickers there?
I don't know if we do stickers per se, but I don't think we can probably find somewhere like subcontract. So that I don't think that'll be a problem.
I actually might have somebody to subcontract who is neurodivergent.
Beautiful, definitely. Let's talk about that after. All right. So as the people at home watching this, it will happen. We will figure it out. But The flags will be made, stickers will be made, and it will be by neurodivergent labor. So yes. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No, of course, in my dream world, we'd have an unveiling with the governor and it'd be a big deal, but.
Well, I mean, we could push for that. I mean, no, seriously, seriously, like, this is, this administration, I remember before she became governor, when she was lieutenant governor, she visited my workplace, a Spectrum Design Foundation, this a little bit before she assumed the role of governor. And she's looking around, you could see it in her eyes, like, she was very like, wow, this is amazing. And what Spectrum is, in case people at home watching or anyone here doesn't know, it's embroidery and print shop, right? And it's all neurodivergent people pretty much. And we do big clients like Google, like Uber, a lot of big clients. So it's not, so we are very good at what we do. I'm not just saying that because I work there, but it helps. So and she came and she saw, and she's like, oh, so I really do think if we bring this up to her and like, you know, hey, like this, we're working the government, we're trying to, we're getting the flag made and stuff. Would you like to be there an official unveiling? I think she would. Really, from my interactions with her, although they're very limited, but from what I've seen, I really think she would. I think we should push for that also, because that would show a lot to the neurodivergents in the state how seriously this this government takes neurodivergent affairs. I think it will greatly show that. There would then be absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that we take this serious.
I think those are a few action items to your question, Salon.
Yes. Does anyone else have any questions?
That probably would have been good to show Kim Hill.
Yeah.
While she was here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely be following up with her. She's
Yeah.
a good vehicle to potentially make something like that happen. Right. All right. Well,
I also thank you everyone for voting for all designs, and thank you. I would like to thank everyone for putting their submissions in, because really seeing all that, seeing how this idea has really touched everyone, that really, it's incredible. So I want to thank everyone who submitted and thank everyone who voted.
thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the point in the meeting where we open it up for discussion, and I'm going to throw something out there just for feedback, which is the continuing workforce crisis and certainly direct support professionals and others in the field, and the importance of focusing on this issue in the future. So I would want to potentially see that on our next agenda, but I don't know if anybody has any updates worth sharing with the group or thoughts on that topic generally.
I guess I'll just share that the board did receive a couple emails over the past 2 months from people across the state asking about workforce and if the board wanted to direct any of their new resolutions on assisting with the DSP recruitment and retention efforts, because there isn't a direct board resolution right now that relates to workforce. So we just wanted to put that out in the air. You guys did receive a couple emails. So if anyone wants to talk about what they're seeing on that front or propose anything, that would be great. But
it's such a challenge. I see on Long Island that the agencies are very aggressive with bonuses, and they're doing whatever they can to try to hire staff. And it's just such a challenge right now. Yeah. And certainly it's something worth thinking about, because shortage it's a major issue.
Yeah, without our staff, we can't have more housing, we can't have more programs, services across the board. So I think it's a really core issue that everyone's doing everything they can.
Sorry, but it also goes back to the environment they're working in. So the agencies themselves need to take some responsibility for the environment they're putting, these young men and women in. Again, I've been in houses, with 6, 7, 8 young men and women, some of them incredibly violent. And I'd see the workforce crying, not knowing what to do or how to help them. So I think the agencies need to have a better training ground in providing a safer setting and a more suitable setting for the young men and women, because they are mostly young men and women that are going in. And most of the men that I see are bigger than the staff and much more aggressive. So I think the agencies themselves need to think about how they can provide a better training ground before they put someone into housing so that they don't have such a turnover, and they do whatever they can to make that transition into the house as successful as possible for these workers.
I could just make a comment, I'm sorry. I work in a program.
I can't hear you.
I'm just.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
Hi, okay, I worked at a daycare program on Long Island, I'm just mom. And I definitely agree, the training, there really is not enough training. The DSPs, support staff, the skip training, the CPR, the things like that, that really all fell after COVID. A lot of the agencies have not picked it back up. So a lot of the DSPs are put into these dangerous situations, like what you said, they have absolutely no skip training. They have no idea what to do. They can't help. They get hurt. And in addition to training, their respect, they are not respected, the DSPs, the staff. That I find to be probably the most important with the staff that I worked with. They were not respected. They were treated like the lowest of the low. They were called drivers because they would pick up and drop off participants. They worked with them. They were their lives, 9 to 5, all day. They gave the program to these participants. They were given really no respect, no accolades, no really anything from the administrators, or from the CEOs of the companies. So respect for the DSPs and the HSs, the staff, I think that's huge. So that really doesn't take money, it doesn't take funding, that just takes a change of attitude and a whole change of atmosphere. And really look at what they do. I mean, honestly, if you look at the work and the responsibility that these people have every day, they're caring for your children, they're caring for this population, which is difficult, and they keep giving and giving with the low pay, and they're still there. They don't leave. So that's just my opinion.
And Alexia, one comment suggestion. We talk very little at all, if at all, about transition planning for the young men and women that go from one environment to another. I mean, what is it, $800 that's paid for transition planning? I don't even know the amount that's in the budget. There's really no transition planning that happens. So the success rate of somebody going from one environment to the other, it's the whole process from transition planning for the young men and women that are going to live there to the young men and women that are going to work there. Transition planning is totally lax and something we don't talk about at all. The second thing is there a way to look at agencies that are more successful than others in hiring and retention and maybe learning from them? And it doesn't only have to be in the state of New York, right? This is federal, right? So maybe there's a way that we can look outside of New York if we can't find great examples inside of New York to see what their practices are and learn from them.
Yeah, I think perhaps maybe the next meeting we could identify some of those successful models in both transition planning, retaining, recruiting, and then in particular settings where there may be more challenges where the training isn't necessarily what it needs to be. I'm sure we can find some really good models. I'm sure the National Association of Direct Support Professionals could help us out finding those. Yeah, and it would certainly raise awareness, and there may be something that we want to then end up including in our report as a modification or an addendum that speaks to it. And Michael has a hand up.
Yes, sorry. As someone who's both a special ed attorney and self-advocate representing families in special ed, transition planning is a huge issue. Most school districts do not do proper transition planning. And I think this is an issue where, it's a larger issue that we'd have to work on with education, the state education department, but there's a huge issue that school districts basically don't engage in transition planning, even though they're required to by law.
I'm hearing two different types of transition though, right? I'm hearing the transition once an adult is transitioning residences. And I'm also hearing the transition from school to adult services. I just wanted to clarify that we're talking about two different types of transition, both important, but two different types.
Sure.
Great. Any other thoughts or comments on future topics for this group? Okay. All right, and I think we have a public comment period. I don't know if we have anybody who's signed up to, we do, okay.
For members online, if you raise your hand, I'll call on your name and I'll send you a request to unmute. You can then unmute and speak. We have a few hands raised. First, we have Laura Carmichael. Laura, you can unmute. You're unmuted.
Flag. I think that's awesome. And I love the neurodiversity movement, but I wonder if the board thinks about, are we excluding certain people when we talk about neurodiversity? Because my son has regressive autism. He was typically developing till age 1, and now he has pretty, I know we don't use the term severe autism, but I would say, you know, he has higher support needs. So, and there was a lot of talk in the chat about identifying, you know, autism first language, that sort of thing. And I think it should really be up to the individual, because I think, you know, it's perfectly fine if people want to say they are autistic. And if I want to say that my son has autism, that's okay too. And I would love to have more of a, you know, discussion about that sort of thing. But I don't know if the group, you know, I'm curious, I guess, if what the group thinks about people with more profound autism, I guess, because they may not identify as being neurodiverse, but more as having a pretty severe disability. So I was just curious about maybe some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, I certainly think that this group is covering all of that, and that's, I view it, I view that type of disability that's significant as being part of this conversation. So I don't know how others feel.
I think I think every disability goes under that flag, not just people with autism, because there's so many disabilities out there that they don't all of them don't have flags. So why not have one flag to announce for everybody with a disability, not just autism? So I think it does go under the severe autism, people quadriplegic, disabilities.
Yeah, pretty much with the flag, if you're like neurodivergent, that's flags for you. It doesn't really matter anything about that. If you're neurodivergent, that flag is going to represent you.
I mean, I think just having the infinity symbol on it alone makes it inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, because that symbol, like, if you look up, lots of people say that's what they represent. So that's why I put it front and center in the flag. And so it represents all people neurodivergent, regardless of what their diagnosis is.
But all you need to know no matter what disability you have. That's what I know from experience.
Next, we have Trish Calendra. Trish, you can unmute. Next, we have Gail. Gail, you can unmute.
Am I muted?
You're unmuted, Gail.
Okay. Well, the reason I came to this meeting was because of a recent experience I had with employment. I have been fired from so many jobs symptoms of my disability, like having a meltdown during working hours. And it's always been said that I'm being fired for cause or banned from the store or deplatformed from the gig work for cause. And therefore, it's totally legal to do this and it isn't in violation of the ADA Act. And I don't want this to happen to kids who are growing up today. I'm 41, so a lot of my working years have been finished, but I still um have a ways to go, of course. But I recently was I currently work at Instacart as an independent contractor shopping in the stores and delivering groceries. So I don't have an employer, but at a Wegmans, had a meltdown because they had an alarm go off in the middle of the store. And then after that, I was allowed to finish shopping, but then I was banned from doing Instacart at Wegmans ever again by the decision of one manager at a store. So now I can't go shop at any other Wegmans either. And that's why I came to this meeting and I just wanted to share that concern.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail, for sharing.
Trish, you can unmute. You're unmuted.
I think I have it now. First, I want to thank you for the housing increase that was so desperately needed. Great work there, and I really appreciate that. I am actually from Suffolk County. I do a lot of advocacy here to create some affordable opportunities for people. So I appreciate that you mentioned all the work that we are trying to get done here. I do have a concern about some of the fulfill language and some of the other issues related to ish, because it really does sort of fly in the face of person-centeredness and what people truly would like to have in their life. So while we're making strides in inclusivity and creating non-certified opportunities, we're sort of starting to lose sight and making a lot of agency oversight again into non-certified. The whole point of creating non-certified was to give people opportunities and the opportunities that they would like to have in life. And this sort of, goes backwards. If you want to create something for more than 4 people in one complex, you need to be aligned with a traditional agency to create that, and that is just really not kind of acceptable. So I hope that we come up with a way to fix that a little bit more, and I'd be happy to work on a committee. It's almost like we have this autism community committee, and now we need one for housing, and I'd love to offer myself up to help in that realm.
No, I was just saying, I know Trish personally, obviously both being from Suffolk County, and she truly is a leader. She brings together developers all the time in Suffolk County that are willing, ready, and able to build affordable housing. They just don't have the funding to do it. And when you think about, I know you mentioned 850 units, it's great, but really, or 650 units, open and operating, that's really a small amount when you consider how many young adults there are with autism. So again, it's a start, but it's only really a drop in the bucket. And again, I think you did mention there's funding opportunities available on Long Island. Hopefully we'll pursue that more aggressively because they are developers just waiting and wanting to do this and develop housing on Long Island. And again, if there is a committee that is created, an additional committee, I know there's a housing committee already, correct? Mm-hmm. But if there's additional people like Trish and those out there that are already actively doing this every single day, would really be great people to be able to learn from and be part of those committees.
Thank you. I don't know if I can add this, but I just wanted to note that John Maltby actually runs the DDAC Housing Committee, so I think that would be a really great avenue to partner. I know that they actually have the fulfills process on the agenda for their next meeting to discuss, so instead of recreating the wheel, you might want to just leverage what is already in existence. But thank you.
It's actually a good suggestion.
I also do want to throw out there too, kind of being involved in disaster relief. You can never have too many, because like one of the problems that we're seeing nationwide right now with after Hurricane Ian. So if you look at that part of Florida, they've been hit by Ian, by Irma, and Hurricane Michael over the past 5 years. All their accessible housing is gone. Period. So we are now working, so like, that's one of our things, that we can't get people into their recovery because there's no, either they have to leave the state or they have to go, so that's another thing that I don't know if that's been even considered, especially because, there's a lot of talk about Long Island, and Long Island is, if we get hit, as we learned from Sandy, and storms are getting even worse. Sandy wasn't even a hurricane when it hit.
Yeah.
It was a glancing blow.
And yeah, I'm sorry.
So that's something that I think that, I don't know if that, because also goes, that might get into some of that climate change funding, infrastructure bills, stuff like that. I don't know if that's been connected into it yet or not.
And that's, I think, the other issue, the breakup regionally when you look at housing, right? Because the issues on Long Island are so different than the issues upstate New York, as far as cost, transportation. The settings are just so different. So to have one blanket way to, again, get approved for something or not is again, very difficult when you have so many different regions with different obstacles and challenges that they have to face.
Well, good input. Do we have more?
Next, we have Ruth Ann. You're unmuted, Ruth Ann.
Hi. So I'm an autistic young adult, and I'm pretty very passionate about autism advocacy stuff. But anyways, I did talk about this in a previous board meeting, and I don't want it to get forgotten about. There is a lot of autistic people like myself who get zero services because our adaptive functioning score is 4 points too high, or like mine is 4 points too high. Some other people's might even be a 71, like a point too high, and they get zero help, and that's not okay. And also, I will say I also work part-time as a DSP, and like the girl I work with is finally, after like 8 months to finding a staff person that she's hiring full-time. She didn't have full-time staff for that long, and but the full-time staff person wants to be paid like 20 to 23 an hour, and right now her budget is like 19, so it's okay, they're gonna pay out of pocket. But really, money does matter. Like, a lot of people have turned her down because they want to be paid something that they can't afford. But I mean, definitely training stuff matters too, but we can't forget about like the little bits. I think sometimes the PWD thinks it's such a great thing. They gave these little bonuses or whatever, but it's not really enough when you look at what people are actually needing, especially with how expensive it is to live these days.
Yep. Thank you for those comments.
Next, we have Patricia. Patricia, you can unmute. We have no other hands.
Great. Well, a lot of good conversation today. Many thanks to the presentations that were given. We have a number of items for our next meeting and some follow-up to do between now and the end of the month. Is there anything else from any members of the committee? Well, happy holidays, and look forward to seeing everybody in 2023.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. So, Krista, we haven't met first.